So today's agenda, as you saw from the invite, is data interface testing. We're going to talk a little bit about data maturity models and centralizing testing, also about automating data interface testing, comparing XML files and flat files, and how to gain up to 100% of coverage of your data. And Chris will do a nice demo of showing how we go about doing this. All right, so first a quick blurb about RTTS, the builders of QuerySurge. We're the leading provider of software quality for critical business systems. We founded RTTS in 1996. We've been around for quite some time now. Our primary focus is on services and software around QA and testing. We're based in New York right now. That's where we're doing this webinar from. Our geographic region is typically focused on North America, but we've done engagements all over the world. And our customer profile is typically the Fortune 1000. And now we've been doing a lot of mid-market companies. We've had over 600 corporate clients in the last 18 years. Partners, we partner with the biggest software vendors out there that supply QA and testing tools or data and data warehouse tools, namely IBM, Oracle, Microsoft, HP, Hortonworks, and Teradata. Okay, quick quote from Information Week regarding validate and testing of data. Information Week said, unfortunately, companies don't often spend enough time aligning the data testing and validation cycle for the project timeline. And also, you really need to make sure that you're validating and testing throughout the process. This is a big issue as data becomes more and more important and larger and growing as exponentially as it is. So here's some other quick quotes from experts. Gartner said the average organization loses $8.2 million annually to report data quality. Gartner in that same report also said that some organizations lose as much as $100 million annually due to bad data quality. Research firm Sirius said data quality best practices boost revenue by 66%. And Information Week also said 46% of companies cite data quality as a barrier for adopting business intelligence products. So data quality is a big issue right now. Okay, so let's look at some data maturity models and data interface testing. All right, so IBM back in 2007, along with the help from 55 other major Fortune 500 corporations, got together and decided to use the capability maturity model integration from the Software Engineering Institute at Carnegie Mellon as a footprint to decide how mature is their organization when it comes to data quality. So just like the CMMI model, it's a 5-level model, with the first one being the initial level where there's really unpredictable process, poor controlled, and reactive. We like to call this the Nike phase, which is the Nike level, which is the just do it mentality. There's few stable processes. Level 2 is the managed process, where your process is characterized for projects and it's actually manageable. You have some documentation, more controls. Level 3 is when you start defining your process, data-related policies, data integration opportunities and better leverage, risk assessments for data integration and quality becomes part of the project methodology. Level 4 is when you're really climbing up there, and now you're quantitatively measuring and controlling your data. And then, obviously, the top level is optimizing, continuous process improvement. Cost of data management is easier to manage. And then the last one on that list, which is important to us, is cost to reduce as processes become automated. So this is a very interesting report and study that IBM and, like I said, 55 other companies did based upon the CMMI model. And it's a lot of companies are following this. It's very interesting stuff. If you're interested in data maturity model, we will probably be running a webinar in about a month on this topic in more detail. So here's where most companies are. Most of them, from our observations, are at the managed level, where they're just starting to get some defined controls and are just managing the process. Obviously, there's a lot more work to be done if we want to clean up the data. So RTTS, pattern also after CMMI, devised a data maturity model for test execution of data based on our observations and our experience over the last 18 years. Same as CMMI, 5 levels. Level 1 is execution of testing by sampling. Sampling is pretty much visually comparing data sets. You're not doing a lot of coverage, maybe under 1%. It's not repeatable, but it's something. Level 2 is using Excel or another homegrown method, ad hoc reporting, using Excel to compare data sets. Level 3 is using minus queries and SQL editors to compare data and more detailed reporting. Level 4 is data test automation, fully repeatable automation, centralizing your reporting. And then your top level, data quality optimizing, is full automation, tracking of ROI, predictive data issues, auditable history and results. And the business totally understands and supports this type of testing management into it. So again, level 2 is where we see most companies that we're dealing with, whether it be from a consulting or from a software side, doing ad hoc reporting using something like Excel or a homegrown method to compare data and test data. Some are using level 3, but that's about as high as we see it. Obviously, what's the maturity level of your data testing and where do you want to be? Obviously, we all want to be higher up the level, and that's what we're going to talk about, how to get there. So here's a quick definition from Oracle on what a data interface is. It's a set of attributes representing a given entity used to create processes that read from or write to interfaces rather than directly from or to sources or targets of data. So let's take a look at data interfaces and data interface testing. So on our left now, we have a bunch of systems. Some could be internal to your company, some could be external, like your mainframe or distributed applications or web-based systems, or client or vendor data, which is external to you, that you might be getting feeds from. And these will come to you in either the form of flat files, whether it be fixed width or delimited, or through XML. And then through some kind of process, probably an ETL or an ELT process, they'll go into your systems, whether they be ERP systems like SAP or Oracle PeopleSoft or others, or CRMs like Siebel or Salesforce, or financial trading systems or any other system where you might be getting these analytic systems. So the data is coming in from either internal feeds in your company or external from a client or vendor into either a flat file or XML into one of your big systems. So how do you test this? Well, as we said at level 2, the popular strategy that we see out there is using Excel. So what happens there is you're importing either the flat files or the XML into Excel, and then you're using a SQL editor to pull the data from your systems that corresponds to what was in your flat files in Excel into your interfaces, and you're pulling it into Excel and using something like the counter function to compare these data sets column by column. Now, the problem here is that Excel is incredibly slow and wasn't really built for this, and the process is incredibly inefficient, not repeatable, and there's no reporting based around it. So this is the number one strategy out there, and while it works, it's not a great scalable model. So is there a better way to do this? Well, we think there is. We have a solution of how to automate testing of data interfaces. So RTTS has come up with a tool, a product called QuerySurge. It's a tool specifically built to automate data testing. Some of the things that QuerySurge does is QuerySurge can verify upwards of 100% of all data very quickly. It can automate the testing effort. So this is one of the things about maturity of your data model. It can automate the kickoff based on an event. It can perform all the tests. It does all the comparisons very quickly, and can email the results all automated without any interaction. It can test across any kind of platform. So technology-wise, data warehouses, data marts, flat files, XML, Hadoop, it can pretty much connect to anything. It can speed up testing up to 1,000 times faster than manual testing, and has deep dive reporting for auditable report history, automating of email reports, just everything you need to make your process more mature. The architecture of QuerySurge is a web-based 2.0 application. So web interface, Your testers can be anywhere in the world, or developers, or whoever's using the tool. You point it at your source and your targets, and it pulls data from both the source and the target, and whether the source is a flat file, XML, or anything else in the target, could be database, data warehouse, data mart, and brings it back into the QuerySurge database and crunches it all there very, very quickly. Again, it's web-based, so it supports all your major browsers. It installs either on Windows or Linux, and can connect that source to targets to all the things we talked about before, all those different technologies. So the way data interface testing works from a high level, QuerySurge, you point it at either your XML or your flat files, and you point it at your systems that the data interface was, the data was moved to. You pull it back, it'll crunch it very quickly. It'll do the compares, it'll give you all the reports and everything you need. One of the good things about QuerySurge is you don't have to take XML and import it into a database, or you don't have to do that with a flat file or import it into Excel. QuerySurge can natively connect the flat files or XML and do joins between them. So it's really, really cool technically, and it performs everything you need it to do. QuerySurge is made up of 4 modules: a design library where you create what we call query pairs, which are pairs of queries aimed at the source and target. It has a scheduler, so you can run tests now at 11 o'clock on Wednesday night or after an event. It has a runtime dashboard where you can view execution in real time and analyze the results here. And it has a reporting module that allows you to drill down into any data defects or data differences that were found, or row differences, and crunch the numbers, export to Excel or PDFs, do whatever you want with it. So the value add from QuerySurge here is it can provide value by either increasing your testing coverage of upwards to 100%, or decreasing testing time by as much as 1,000 times, or a combination of increasing coverage while decreasing testing time, depending on what you want. From an ROI perspective, you can redeploy headcount, because if you have 4 or 5 testers now, you might only need 1 or 2 once the scripts are written, and you can have them doing other things that I'm sure would be more efficient. You can increase in better data due to shorter, more thorough testing cycle, possibly saving lots of money by preventing bad data. So back to our data maturity model and test execution, the 5 different levels. Again, we see most people at level 2, which is ad hoc reporting, not tremendously repeatable process, and obviously you want to get up to level 5 where you have full automation, tracking of ROI, all the improvements in your process that you need. So which level should your process be on? If you use something like QuerySurge, we can get you up to a level 5 optimization and really make your data quality much more efficient. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Thompson, who's going to demo how our tool can test internal and external data feeds against the system. Chris?
I'm going to go ahead and log into QuerySurge. I'm going to do a brief.
There we go.
All right, there we go. All right, we're going to do a quick 10-minute overview of QuerySurge, and then we're going to get into actually connecting to XML files and CSV files. I'll go ahead and log in. So QuerySurge is made up of 5 modules. Real quickly, the design library is where you create and edit your tests, the scheduling module for executing test suites and scheduling scenarios, a run dashboard for real-time monitoring, a reporting for deep dive reports, and an admin section. So in the design library, there's a folder structure such as Windows Explorer. You can have folders within folders to organize your query pair. I'll show you what a query pair looks like.
And the query pair, again, Chris, is 1 query at the source and 1 query at the target, correct?
That is correct, exactly. So as you can see, I have a source query on the left, target query on the right, with its connection information in this particular query pair is going against SQL Server for the source. against a target of Oracle 10G.
Now, it can go against any two connections, doesn't matter what they are?
That's correct. So, for example, you can connect to Netezza, different flat files, DB2, Exadata, Hadoop. So a query pair also has some other properties associated with it. So you could also have a description, a mapping field, and some additional properties for comparison.
What are these, Chris, in these mapping properties? What are some of the things that are in there?
Yeah, you can handle how you handle row count options. So if there's additional rows on the source or additional rows on the target, we can ignore those, or we can put up warnings rather than just failing the query pair straight out.
And the key column definition.
If you put a key column in QuerySurge, it makes the performance and the results that are returned much more readable. So if you have a key, it's always wise to put the key column in the key column field. And then there's also how we handle duplicates. If we don't have keys, we can check for duplicates within QuerySurge and be able to handle that.
So a lot of it's automated and takes it out of your concern.
Exactly. There's also a history tab, so we can go back in history and take a look at what this query pair looked like in the past.
So if you change it, it's all saved there.
That's correct. And then there's what we call a design time run. The design time run is meant to really test your test or make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing before you actually do your testing. So we can go ahead and kick off this design time run. So right now it's reaching out to the SQL Server database, pulling back the results into its own MySQL QuerySurge database, doing the same to the target, and then doing an optimized comparison. We can go ahead and view those results and bring up the view pane where we can see there's a source tab for all the source data, target tab for all the target data, whether there's any failures or not. In this case, there's not. We'll show you one that does have one shortly. There's a source query and target query that we're executing. We'll go ahead and go back to our customer folder, and we'll take a look at one that actually failed. We'll look at the last name query pair. Take a look at the last results for this query pair. Go to the failures tab, and we can see that in this particular case, there was no logic defined for the ETL to how to handle the if there was a middle name situation. So we could also look at this data side by side. So on the left, you get your source. On your right, you get your target. On the target side, the ETL for the middle name was not handled properly.
So in our external feeds, the source will be the flat file of the XML will be going, right? And the target will be like an ERP system like SAP.
That's correct. Exactly. And just to point out real quick that I know I was only doing 2 columns at a time, but there's no limitation on that. So if you wanted to do more than 2 columns, you could do all your many columns. There's no limitation on what you can do. I'll show you the failures on this one too. The same failure on the last name field. I'm just going to jump over to scheduling real quick. So in the scheduling module, you can create what we call a test suite, which is a group and query pair. I'll go ahead and do that now. Rainy in New York, so I'll just call it Rainy. And to create a test suite, you can see on the right-hand side our design time library. And we could simply just drag folders over. Additionally, we could select individual query pairs to make up our test suite.
So once you create the query pairs, you can bundle them out.
You bundle them in suites, and then we can run scenarios of multiple suites as well.
Okay, so that gives you flexibility of what you want to run when?
Exactly. So there's three ways to execute a query pair. We could or a test suite, that is. We could schedule a scenario. Call it Randy again.
Which is just a group of one or more query pairs?
That's correct. So we'll set up 3. And we could schedule these to run on a particular day or a particular time. or we can schedule them all to run on a particular day, particular time. I'm going to hit cancel for now. The second way to do it is via command line API, which means after a particular event is completed, we can execute test suites via the command line.
So if I wanted to have my suite run after the ETL process ended, we can have it run automatically unattended right after the ETL process finishes?
That's exactly right. The easiest way to run a test suite is just to right-click it and say Run Now. So that brings us over to the Run dashboard. On the left-hand side is all the scenarios that ran in the past, as well as the one that's running right now at the top. In the middle is the test suites involved with that scenario. And then once this kicks off, there we go. A couple of nice graphs showing the status of the queries as they go from the ready state to the analysis complete state, and then another graph showing you over time the statuses of those queries. And in real time, I could double click into the test suite and take a look at the results. So I click on one. And similarly to the design time run, I get all my source data, my target data, whether there were any failures, and again, the source and target query for each query pair. Let's take a look at an interesting one. So this particular one failed. We can go ahead and look into why it failed, do the side-by-side. On the left is your source, on the right is your target. For some reason, the O on the bill saying field is lowercase on the source side and capitalized on the right side, indicating some sort of failure. That's pretty much for the Run dashboard. I'll go ahead and move on to the reporting section. Now, there's quite a few reports. We can't go through them all today, but just real quick, I'll just show you the one that's more interesting, which is the scenario detail report. We'll go ahead and run a report on the scenario we just completed. And it gives us the information such as how many total query pairs there were, 15, 12 passed, 3 failed. It also lets us know that 1 million valid individual verifications happened in 21 seconds, along with approximately 2,800 data failures between source and target, and a reliability factor of 99.73.
How's that reliability factor calculated, Chris?
Yeah, so that's based on how many total verifications over the number of data failures. So basically 99% of your data is correct, but however, only 80% of your query pairs actually passed. That's the difference.
Meaning 3 query pairs failed, but they only contained less than 1% of your data.
Correct. Okay, so that's the brief overview for QuerySurge. Now we're going to move on to verifying XML and CSV files. So real quickly, here's pretty much what we're testing. We're testing XMLs, going into doing a very slight ETL into an Oracle 10G, along with flat files going through a small ETL, going into an Oracle 10G.
And this is similar to a lot of the clients that you've tested, right? Where you're getting feeds from different areas?
That's correct. So here's just a mapping document for those of you in the QA world that are testing data. Probably seen one before. I just wanted to bring one up real quick. This is the demonstration that I have today, and the query pairs that actually test this mapping document. There's not very complex transformations, but there are some on the in the CSV file as well as the XML. They're in the same type of format. We have a full name field that's being sliced in half so that we can create the first name, last name on the target side or the Oracle 10G side. Additionally, there's a load source where it tells us where it's coming from, as well as a load date. Now we'll go ahead and move on. I'll just show you some of the data itself. Not exactly where I wanted to go. Okay, so let's take a look at these 3 files comprised of what was in that mapping data. I have the purchaser CSV, sale CSV, and sale item CSV. Let's take a look at one of those. So here's the purchaser CSV. It looks always a bit messy in Notepad, but however, I just want to kind of mess myself up here and change one of the values just so that we could see that indeed QuerySurge will pick up that value. and show it as a failure. Additionally, on the XML side, I have similar 3 files, but in XML format. You can see the XML format over here on the right-hand side. Now we'll go ahead and go back into QuerySurge, and we could go ahead and test the feed into Oracle 10G.
So now, Chris, to be clear, so that we're all clear, now QuerySurge can connect to either the CSV files or any flat file, or XML, and you can write SQL against them natively.
That's correct. So how QuerySurge works is we set up a connection to a folder that contains those files. So if you notice, I had 2 folders, one for CSV, one for XML, 2 connections, one for the CSV, one for the XML file.
Now, obviously, when you're going from your external feed, your data feeds, whether it be external or internal, into whether it be a data warehouse or an ERP or like a SAP system where people thought there might be some transformations, right?
That's correct.
So how do you handle the transformation?
You write the transformation right in the SQL, and I'll demonstrate that now.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead into the customer dim first name query pair that's testing the first name, came over to the target site correctly. You'll see that I actually wrote a little bit of code here to actually parse out that first name from the full name string so I can compare it to the target site. You'll also notice on the right-hand side a little purple with a $sign in front of it. That's what we call a query snippet. You'll see that zcity-xml is for that query snippet. I'm going to go ahead and change that because we're actually going against CSV. We can see the connection set up against the CSV. So, and I'll show you some more query pairs so you get an idea of what a query pair snippet is. It's a way to reuse pieces of code. So if I go into another query pair, you can see it also has that snippet, and all the query pairs for that matter. Look at some sale ones, you can see the same snippet. So we'll go ahead and go into our query pair snippets, which was the source one, and we can see that value is the same value that was shown in the query pair. We can change that to CSV.
So a snippet is
it's like a global variable.
It's a variable that if you change it once, if you're calling it 50 times, you'll have to change it in one place?
That's correct. You'll also notice that there's a load date, and there's actually a hard-coded date in there. So I could easily create that a query snippet by just highlighting over it.
So if you wanted to use a filter that only tests the data that came in today, you would use a query snippet?
That's correct. And then all I have to do is click the Save Selected SQL as a reusable query snippet. Save it as a snippet. We'll call it a load _ date. We'll save that.
You already have that name existing.
There we go. So now I would just go through all my queries, all my queries, add that in there, and then I could just change the date in one place, and we're good to go.
So what kind of role would you something where you're only testing data that comes in, just say today? Would that be like your operations guys that have data coming every day and just want to verify that?
Yeah, I mean, there are clients out there that have to test the data every day, so they would use QuerySurge, go in and change it in the morning, execute their test, and make sure all the data is correct.
And no reason to test yesterday because they already did that.
That's correct. So let's go ahead and execute some of these. We did want to see that my first name change actually failed, so we'll go run over to a design time run. We'll go ahead and run this again.
Now this was the CSV one you changed?
Let's see. Oh, we didn't save it. And this should bring up that first name change that I made to the one row. Yes, it did. It brought back the one failed row. We can go look at the failure, and we can see that I changed the name from Hector to Rainy. Now we can go ahead and just go do we'll actually create a test suite for the CSV. Just do the customer. Customer. That. Bring over the customer folder. Click save. Go ahead and do a run now.
So now this is you're comparing data in the CSV to the Oracle 10G database?
That's exactly what I'm doing. Now execute this query pair. We should see the same failure on first name because I made that change.
So the design time run is just to make sure your tests work, but you can also catch defects there, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I mean, I would say 50% of the time defects are caught while you're actually creating a query pair.
So why would you run in this instead of design time? That's where you get all your reporting from?
Since every time they do a new build or a new release, you could run all your query pairs as a group rather than individually.
Oh, design time only runs one at a time.
That's correct.
Okay.
Go ahead into our scenario, take a look at first name, we'll sure see that we have the same failure. All right, so now that we've done that, a really cool thing is that we could just go back, and since our XML files are in the same type of format, I can go back to our design library. And there's several ways to do this, but the first way I need to change two things. I need to change my connection, and I also need to change my snippet to source. So now I'm just going to switch this over back to XML. Save that. That'll update all my query pairs. And then there's two ways I could change the connection. I could simply go into a folder, right-click it, run a connection update, change from file CSV on the source to file XML on my source queries, and click OK, and it would change all my query level based connections for source from file CSV to file XML. I hit cancel because there's an additional way to do it. So in the schedule module, I'm going to go ahead and create one more test suite. We're just going to call it XML. Save that. We'll bring over a customer, and why not? We'll bring over sale as well. And then under properties for a test suite, I can override my connection behavior from my design library. So I can change what's in there, which is file CSV to file XML. I still want to go against Oracle 10G, so I'm good there. So this is just an easy way. If you change environments, you don't have to go back through all your query pairs and update them. There's two different ways you could do it. You could do it on the query pair level, or you could do it when you're actually designing a test suite. Like that. I went ahead and did a run now on that as well. This one takes a little bit longer because on the fail folder, and you can go ahead and take a look at that. I don't know if I've really got in too much detail on how we're actually doing this from a file structure point of view. But here's an actual join between two files. And how QuerySurge works is purchaser is a file, in this case a CSV file, in the folder that you define your connection to.
So you don't connect to a file, connect to a folder that has files in it.
That's correct. And sale is the other file. And they both have a column called ID purchaser, which I've joined on here.
So not only can you do joins with data, with tables in a database, you can do joins with files.
That's correct.
Which is pretty cool technology.
And it works the same with the XML connection as well. Let's go back to our run dashboard. And we could see all our results there. So I'm going to go ahead and move over to the administration module real quick, just for a brief show and tell there, and then I'll be done, unless you have further questions, Paul.
No, go to the administration, and then I have a question.
So in the admin module, there's your usual adding more users, and also what we call agents. Now, an agent allows for some load balancing within QuerySurge. So if QuerySurge is not performing as well as you want, or you want it to be faster, you can add additional agents. So in this particular case, although I only have one online, you can see that additional agents are here, and this allows me to fire off more queries at a time, increasing performance. There's also a whole data management section. Obviously, we're bringing back lots and lots of data. In some cases, I could delete scenarios that I previously ran. There's some data retention properties that I could set. I have the ability to archive or restore. Here's where I set up the different types of connections. We'll just show you a flat file connection real quick. We'll just say, into the word rainy today.
Well, it's pretty rainy.
We could do a flat file connection. We'll click next, and we could go delimited or fixed width. So there's lots of different options. You get the path. You can set the delimiter values. I'll just put anything in there now. Get to the next section. Then there's all sorts of options on how you want to handle your headers. There's also data type options for, if you want it to be brought into QuerySurge as an integer instead of a string, you can also do that. I'll cancel out of that. There's also a whole notification section for notifications when the scenario is finished or executed. Emails can go out telling you pass, fail type results, how many query pairs passed, how much data completed.
So as I said in the slide presentation, tell me if I'm not correct with this. You can run the ETL process. The ETL team can run the ETL process. The QuerySurge tool can automatically be kicked off by the ETL process, run the tests that you've already had scheduled, and then when it's done, send an email to everybody you have identified in the automated email section so that, it could be done unattended at night or on a weekend and still run automated and inform everybody of any difference.
That's right. You can wake up in the morning, have an email saying whether your day is going to be a good day or a bad day based on the results.
So I know you have your team's doing a lot of client work. I know you've got a couple clients where you're doing data feed testing. So tell us about one of them and what's going on there.
Yeah, we have a client that has multiple clients themselves that bring in that need feeds from their system into this main system, and so that's all done by XML. There's builds pretty much weekly, and we use QuerySurge to be able to test those XML feeds on a daily basis.
And how's that going?
It works great. I mean, there's no problems with QuerySurge. The real problem is that we find defects that I don't think you could find by simply sampling 1% of your data or 5% of your data.
So it's actually improving the process and cleaning up the data and making it better. And I think this is critical data because they're using it for analysis of
it's pharmaceutical
stuff. So the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, is monitoring them, and if they have poor records, I'm sure they get fined.
Yep. In fact, just recently, out of about 60,000 rows in an XML file, two rows came back bad, and it was critical information.
Good. So it's working.
That's correct.
What else do you have, Chris?
That's all I have for today. I'll pass it back to Laura, who I think has some questions.
I do. I actually have a bunch of questions. And typing them into the chat window if you have not already. We did have quite a few come in, so I'll get started with the first one. Okay, so can it handle multi-line? So can QuerySurge handle multi-line fixed width data files? And then they said it's like flat files, and then they clarified and said multiple rows for a single record.
Multiple rows for a single record. I have to look at that one in more detail.
Okay. The next question is, please speak to how this works with Hadoop and data stored in structures within HBase.
Well, I mean, we through Hive, we've definitely been able to connect to Hadoop and been successful on client side. I don't know if that
I think
answers.
I think that's more of a Jeff question.
That's the tech.
So if you can find out who it is, you can have Jeff answer them by email.
Yeah.
Chris is not a Hadoop guy.
Okay. So that's a big data question. So we'll pass that on to our big data expert. We'll get back to you after the webinar. The next question is, will this session be recorded? And I can answer that. Yes, it is being recorded, and we will also have the slide presentation up on the website for after the webinar. One person asked, does this test performance of the query as well? Is this a load test tool or just a data quality tool?
No, it's just a data quality tool. It does bring back some metrics on how long your query took to run, so that could be useful, but it's not designed for that. It's designed as a data quality tool.
Okay, and we got another question in that says, we use EMC Pivotal Hawk, which is Green Plum. Does the tool support this platform?
Yes. Green Plum has a JDBC driver to connect to. We can connect to any JDBC compatible data store.
Okay, and the next question is, where are the test reports stored? The actual source and target data reports.
Yeah, all the source and data and the reports are all stored within QuerySurge's MySQL database, which is included with the product.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is, when each ETL is working with huge data, like millions of records, how is the source and target data stored?
Again, it's stored in QuerySurge's MySQL database. No matter how big it is, it'll store it. Obviously, there's going to be some hardware requirements on the installation side, depending on how much data you're actually bringing back. But that is where it's stored.
But also, Chris, tell me if I'm right. If you want to expunge or get rid of or offline records that you don't need immediately, or test runs that you don't need at all, you can export them out of the system.
That's correct. There's a whole test management section where I could select the scenarios that were executed, and I could delete that, archive it, or export it.
Okay, and the next question is there any possibility to link a scheduler or create dependencies to finished ETL process or finished build?
We have facilities within our command line API to bring back results to whatever system is calling it so that you'll be able to write a batch file to be able to do this on pass, do that on fail. There is functionality within the command API.
Okay, and the next question is, does QuerySurge integrate with test management tools, for example, HC Quality Center, for tracking scenario detail results and defects related to failures?
It's on our roadmap to do right now. I think, Chris, you can export any kind of report and pin it to Quality Center.
Yeah, so how I handle it on my clients, like the Quality Center or for any management tool, is that we have a similar test set up in Quality Center, and then we export the results and import it into Quality Center.
Okay, and then does QuerySurge support revision management for query pairs? If so, which source control management tools are supported?
It's on our roadmap, but not at this time.
But don't we store all the changes to the query pairs?
Within QuerySurge.
In the tool itself.
In the tool itself.
So we have an audit history of all the query pairs and all the runs?
That's correct.
So it's...
even a design time history run is recorded, so we record everything.
Yeah, so since this tool is born out of companies that work with the FDA, a lot of them had auditing requirements, so a lot of that's built into tools natively.
Okay, and the next question is, how does a report, or what does a report look like when there are missing rows from source to target?
I actually have an example of that. With my screen still being shared, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'll take the next question when I run this, but this should have extra rules.
Okay, and has Chris used QuerySurge on for other clients, and if so, what can you tell us about other uses for QuerySurge?
We've used QuerySurge for interface testing, data migration, data warehousing, and pretty much any time you have any kind of load between one system and another. We even have a client that for upgrades, because they do, even though it's not transferring information from one database to another database, every time they upgrade their system, they use QuerySurge and they go off the baseline before upgrade, and then they as source, and then target after the upgrade to ensure that any changes they made to their back-end database was successful. So yeah, those are pretty much the game.
So ETL, data warehouse testing, data migration testing, database upgrade, data interface testing, and
big data.
And big data, and do big data testing.
Just an example of row count difference.
Okay, so here's the example of row count differences that was asked in a previous question. We have another question that is, where are the actual XML file names specified?
Yeah, I think I should have been more clear in the beginning, but I did go back to it. I'll just reiterate that one more time. It's the table name. So the way our flat file and our XML driver works is that we connect to a folder. The files in that folder are the tables in the SQL that you write.
Okay. The next question is all data from the select statement pulled back into the QuerySurge database for processing? Is that data stored there? Is it purged after the test is run? I think this is related to the other.
It's currently brought back, but we are, in the very near future, we are coming up with ways to verify it first, then get rid of it, and different options within QuerySurge for people that are dealing with very, very large amounts of data and just would not be able to acquire the hardware to properly support that amount of data. So right now it's a manual effort. You got to delete out the scenario information, all the source and target rows, but we are looking at ways of minimizing that and having some options within QuerySurge to automatically purge.
Okay, and then we have another question. How can I compare XML elements at different levels of hierarchy? For example, how is complex XML handled?
We'd have to look at the individual case. So if they could send us the sample XML file, we could look at that and see how we could connect it.
Okay, and then this looks like one of the last questions that we have is performance of QuerySurge dependent on the size of the MySQL database server? I know the answer depends on the volume of data and testing, but what do you recommend for sizing of the database server for QuerySurge?
Well, it depends on how much you're doing, but we'd say a minimum of 8 gigs of RAM and how much space? I don't know. Do you remember what it requires?
I mean, at least 200, but I mean, you could go to 500 or as big as you can get. It really just depends on the volume of questions.
Yeah, so it's hard to tell, but we've had people test on laptops, and then we've had people test on really beefy servers, depending on how much data they're bringing back.
Right, and if you're looking to do something where you want to give the product a try and get us on a call, and we can tell you exactly what kind of requirements you need, we definitely have facilities for that. We've got different types of trial options on our website, and our team will be happy to work with you to determine what exactly you need.
Yes, totally idiosyncratic, but probably the best way to do it is go try our 15-day trial. It's free. No one's going to contact you. You get to do whatever you want with it. Download it, put it on your desktop, and see how far you can push it.
Yeah.
And there's always live chat.
Yeah, we have live chat built into the application and on our website.
Yep. And so I guess that wraps up our Q&A session for today. So thank you so much for your time and participation. I'll be sending a follow-up email to you with the link to the recording and the slide presentation, and also a link to where you can find some of the information about taking a trial if you're looking to do something of that nature. So you should be hearing from me within the next day, and I would like to thank you all again and have a great day.